The Last of Us is easily one of my favorite TV shows in a while, and season 1 just wrapped up. But I was a fan of the games long before I was a fan of the show. I played part 1 and part 2 multiple times, which is a surprise because I am not a fan of most mushrooms or fungus. But I do appreciate the science. In fact, without games like The Last of Us, I'm not sure I would have become a scientist. But what is it about games that make them so unique and such a great way to communicate science? Before we get started though, here's a spoiler alert for the games I'm going to talk about. First, science-based video games have to explain really complex information in simple ways so that we can all understand.
Here we go. Keep it extra quiet.
Now this is true for a lot of things, but it's especially true for games like these because if we can't understand it, then we can't play. Let's look at Last of Us Part 1. One of the earliest parts of the game, you have to travel across Boston, and along the way you encounter spores. These spores are one of the main ways that the mutated cordyceps fungus can be transmitted to another person, and we immediately recognize it as part of a fungal life cycle. And it showed these strange things called mycelia, which are kind of like the structural part of the fungus, take place of the spores. But because of the way they're introduced, we still kind of understand both as part of the fungal life cycle. We see the end and beginning of this process when mushrooms emerge from a person's head, allowing spores to emerge and then affect more people. But there's another fundamental biological concept that's central to the plot: evolution.
Well, now, there is reason to evolve. One gene mutates, and an Ascomycetia, Candida, ergot, Cordyceps, Aspergillus, any one of them could become capable of burrowing into our brains and taking control not of millions of us, but billions of us.
Mutations are essential to biological evolution and happen all the time. Most don't affect anything. Some can be harmful, like the ones that lead to cancer cells. However, some provide evolutionary benefits, like allowing a parasitic fungus to jump from insects to humans, or a mutation that allows for someone to develop an immunity. We get all of this information plus a very engaging story in the first 1 to 2 hours of the game. And as this all comes together, we go on an adventure that explores all of these ideas lying just beneath the surface and eventually leads to a complicated moral question at the end of the game. And while The Last of Us is one of the most unique games you can ever play, it's not the only game that gives you this type of experience. Subnautica and No Man's Sky, two sci-fi survival games that are highly addictive. One of the main reasons why I think these games are so engaging is because they use a very simple formula. First, discover, then be immersed, and then repeat. And on some level, it's not too different from the scientific method. Let's take a look at the Subnautica series first. You're stranded on an alien planet called 4546b, a world that's made up of almost entirely ocean. You start the game off in shallow reefs, but then you start to explore and things start to get weird and scary as f. And this is where the science comes in. To make this world believable and drive you to explore, there are resources to collect, shipwrecks to comb through, and biomes with unique organisms. And these biomes also reflect on what we see on Earth in terms of these biomes having their own unique food webs that change horizontally and with depth. But as you're constantly discovering new things and looking out for predators, you have to check your food, water, and oxygen levels to advance in the game. No Man's Sky works in a pretty similar way, but instead of diving to the depths of the ocean, you're constantly flying around through the universe that has been procedurally generated. Procedure generation is a way for game developers to add new variables and inputs into the game that can show up in different places. These inputs and variables are kind of like building blocks and can make unique combinations. They can make new animals, new plants, new structures, and planets and solar systems. And because of this, you can never actually explore the entire universe. Even games that aren't necessarily survival games allow this to happen. Take Civilization.
Our dedication to the ways of science has attracted a great scientist to our civilization.
Civ is a turn-based strategy game where you research technologies and civics.
It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it.
Your goal is world domination, and these technologies and civics help you along the way. You take control of historical leaders, interact with others,
Ta là Triệu Trinh Nương, nữ tướng quân mặc chiếc áo hoàng bào.
build great wonders, try to manage cities, and there are real consequences if you do things wrong. Which is why knowledge is key, and you'll find yourself in the technology tree a lot. As you learn and discover more in each of these games, you have to make new decisions, adjust your goals, and overcome new challenges. You are taking on the role of the character and applying different aspects of your knowledge to new situations. You are the scientist, and this is your game. In these games, you're the one making the decisions, such as where to build a base or what resources you should collect, and that's fundamentally different than books or films. In books, films, and even TV shows, you're not really the one making the decisions, you're watching other characters do that, and that takes away from your agency to affect the plot. If you watch or played The Last of Us, then you know that there's a decision that happens at the end that definitely is going to come back as we get to season 2, or if you played the games, then you know it gets answered in part 2. And while we, the player, might not be the ones making the decision, we are carrying out the agency or the events that happen in the game. And as video games have expanded not just in science fiction and science-based stories, but in other genres too, the number of choices have also expanded in the way we can experience decision and agency. For example, T. Nugent, a philosopher at the University of Utah, while talking on Adam Conover's Factually, suggested that games are a library of agencies and that game developers manipulate your choices, goals, and skills. This isn't to downplay the importance of books, films, and TV shows, as they've been allowing scientists to discover their love of science for decades now. But it is to say that video games are also reaching this status and will likely continue to do so as they become one of the biggest industries in the world. So if you want to be scientists, go pick up the sticks, and I'll catch you next time.